Hello and welcome back to RADmom. I'm Jennifer, and today I'm gonna start telling you stories. I've got a lot of them, and I'm just gonna get started. There's a million things to fill in, and it'll take a long time. So as I get started, feel free to comment. Please subscribe. That definitely helps my family out. Like the video. Lots of comments will help me know what you want to know about, will help me fill in the blanks because I know the story and I know you don't yet. So ask me questions and I'll do my best to fill in the answers as we go along. I'm going to tell you a story today about when Noah was about 6, but I do want to start at the beginning a little bit and tell you that he is from a Russian orphanage. I adopted him in 2000. He was born in an orphanage in a real small town. He was born there, and he was given up on the date of his birth. But it does take a little bit of time to get put into a registry. But since he was given up on the actual date of his birth, he got into the registry pretty quickly. I was able to get him pretty young because since his birth mom did give him up right away. However, total neglect took place right from the start when I went over to Russia. The first time that I saw him, and of course there's a crazy story just getting a child out of the country. I'll have to tell you about that sometime. It's pretty entertaining, actually. But when I did go into the orphanage, it was quite a sight. It was just deplorable conditions. The walls were all white. The nurses, I guess you call them nurses, the caretakers, all wore just pretty much white scrubs. And by white, I mean it wasn't like sparkling white. It was, dirty white, whatever. But everything was there was no color. There was nothing engaging for the children. And there were, of course, children of all ages. Noah was a baby, but there was children of all ages. When the kids were fed, they did not hold any of the kids, which, I've learned so much about attachment at this point. And I mean, the kid, you need to be held. Babies need that. They need that. They need that love. They need the eye contact. They need to hear your voice, somebody's voice. They need to attach to a caregiver, somebody. They need to know somebody's out there, somebody's in the world, somebody that loves them. And there was none of that. There was none of that going on. From what I could see, from what the records say, from what the doctor told me, from what the translator translated, the kids are given 3 bottles a day. They're propped up on the side of the cribs. The bottles are, and I guess if the kids move, from what I could see, from what I witnessed, if the kids move, the bottles fall, and it appears they just didn't get that meal. And the food in there is porridge, which is a milk-based soup-ish type thing, and they are fed on a schedule. So as a newborn, it really does not have much to do with your hunger schedule. And so it's just craziness. It's not the way that anyone in America would take care of a child. Not anyone, not a healthy person would take care of a child. For that matter, it's not the way a healthy person would take care of a child anywhere around the world. Not a healthy person who had adequate resources, let's say that. And diapers were changed much the same way. It was done on a schedule. And so, they did not have adequate staffing to take care of these kids. They certainly did not have adequate resources to take care of the kids. But having said that, they could have done better. I don't know if it was a lack of education or what, if they thought that this was best. I mean, I certainly know of, situations, years and years ago about how, there were studies done and they thought that, perhaps not connecting to kids was better because then they didn't get too attached, before they left. I don't know if something like that's going on. I don't know what the problem is completely, 100%. I mean, obviously a huge language barrier, but, it falls way short. It was it was not good. And he suffers today for that. And so anyway, in addition to the huge neglect, Noah also had gastroesophageal reflux disease, or what's commonly known as GERD. And so whenever he would eat, he would just vomit that right back up. So when I saw him initially, he weighed about 12 pounds when I saw him initially, around 5 months of age. When I actually got him back here to the United States, he weighed about 11 pounds at 6 months. I have heard since recently that it's not uncommon for kids who have a reactive attachment disorder as infants to throw up as a form of control. Like, nah, I'm not going to take your food. I don't know. I don't know if that's the case or not. I mean, Noah continued to throw up for a couple of years, ended up having to have surgery. So I think he just flat out had GERD, but from a medical perspective had that and needed to have surgery to correct it. Once he had the surgery, it actually took there was some medical problems after the surgery, but anyway, he ultimately ended up fine once everything was corrected. So I think his was just, the traditional medical problem. But anyway, in a nutshell, that's kind of what happened initially. So we got him home. He was very, very thin, very malnourished, and just very pale, had not been outside. The first time he had been outdoors was when I went to get his passport photo. No vitamin D, nothing like that. It was just bad. Sometime I'll go through his baby book with you and show you just how pale and thin and things like that he was. It's a sad story. But I did want to jump ahead and just and tell a story about when he was in a private school in first grade, and he had been. It was a great private school. It really was. He had been doing all sorts of mischievous things there, and God loved the principal. He was his name was Chris Anderson. I don't know where the gentleman is today. Somewhere in Lutheran circles. We're not Lutheran, by the way. We're Christian, but we're not of that denomination. But the school was a Lutheran school, and this man had such patience. And Noah got into all kinds of trouble in school. He got into all kinds of trouble at home as well, but he would get into all kinds of trouble at school. And this man, he would get sent to the principal all the time. Noah would. I don't know if he got sent every single day, probably most days. And they had certain things in place as to how they would handle things. And the principal would, he would speak with Noah and pray with Noah and do all sorts of things. And then he would call me. And at the time, I worked for a Fortune 100 company in technical sales, sold computers. And oh my goodness, I was supposed to be, selling computers, and I would end up on the phone, oh my goodness, talking to this gentleman about whatever antics Noah was up to that day, whether he had, pushed someone, his mouth got him into a lot of trouble. I recall one time they finally figured out after months they would go into the boys' bathroom and all the bathroom stalls would be locked. But from the inside they would be locked, but obviously, then they would come from the outside and all the bathroom stalls would be locked, but no one would be in them. Well, they finally figured out that it was Noah. They never had any proof, but it was totally something Noah would do. So they finally, after 3 or 4 months, figured out that it was Noah. And I guess he, kind of blamed Noah to Noah's face. And Noah didn't deny it. So I guess they finally pinned it on Noah. And so things like that Noah would do. But Noah would get in there each day. And then when Noah would get caught doing something, he'd end up in the principal's office, and the principal was like, he's so polite to me. He's like, I can't get over it. He says, yes, sir, no, sir. And he prays with me very respectfully. He's like, I just don't have a problem in the world with him. He was like, but his teacher, he just gives her fits. He drives her absolutely nuts. He won't mind. He won't listen. He won't do any schoolwork. He won't do anything for her. He said, but he comes in here, and I just don't have a problem in the world with him. He said, but, he's just driving his teacher absolutely crazy. And I was like, yes, sir, I understand. That's what happens at home. He wouldn't do anything for me. He had the, traditional RAD symptoms and, all the, traditional RAD stuff. And we'll go over what all that is, sometime. But, he did all that RAD stuff with me. But, to other people, he was superficially charming and, all that good stuff, and people would be like, I just don't see your problem with the kid. He seems awesome. And I'm like, oh yeah, isn't that great? But anyway, he ultimately ends up getting suspended 3 different times. One time he beat some kid up. I don't remember what all he ended up doing, but he did get suspended 3 different times. I would be at work, like I said, and sometimes I'd be on the phone with this principal for hours. I mean, I don't know how the guy had the time of day that he did to talk to me on the phone. I know I didn't really have the time of day to be talking on the phone as much as we ended up talking. But it just got exhausting, and mentally and emotionally to me, I was just at my wit's end because I'd go to work all day. I was a single parent at this point. I had my son, and then I have my biological daughter. I had an ex-husband, and that was not going well. And then I had my son, causing all these trouble all day, every day. And so this was all going on every day. And then I'd be getting these phone calls that would last and last and last. And I had this huge quota at my job because I was in these, high demand corporate sales. And so it was super, super stressful. And then one day I get this call, and by this point my son had been suspended 3 different times. And then one day I get this call, and it was Mr. Anderson, and he said, Jennifer, he said, it's gone too far today. He said, Noah had, he picked up a pair of scissors, and there was a boy in the class that was Indian, and Noah decided that he didn't think that this boy, being a boy, should have long hair. And so, but for whatever reason, Noah wasn't going to try to cut the kid's hair. He decided he was going to cut the boy's finger off. And so he took the scissors and walked up to the boy, grabbed his hand, and went to cut his finger off. And luckily the teacher intervened and was able to put an end to it. And at that point I got the phone call, and the principal just said, we have to, this he's been suspended 3 times. There's nothing else we can do. And of course I understood, but it was devastating. It was devastating. I cried from my job to the school, just thinking, what am I going to do? I don't know what to do. And I picked Noah up and buckled him into the car. He was 6 years old. He was a pretty small child. And Noah was pretty quiet. And Noah said, Mom, he said, what are you going to do? I said, I don't know, bud. I don't know. And Noah, just as quietly and as calmly as he could, he just said, Mom, he said, please don't throw me in the trash. And my heart just broke. It just broke. Because that's how these kids see themselves. To them, they don't matter. And they think they are disposable. And they think that maybe that you would do something like that. And I said, Noah, that would never happen. I said, I love you. Your Grammy loves you. Your sister loves you. All your aunts and uncles love you. I said, I'll take off work tomorrow and we'll figure this out. And that's what we've been doing for all these years, is figuring it out, one day at a time. Please subscribe to the channel and we'll keep telling you the story. Have a great day.